Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to reflect on this week's theme of the week, which is theatre, for today's assembly. Now, many of you study theatre as part of your A-levels, and you know the important role that theatre has played during human history, going all the way back to the ancient Greeks. I know many of you study Brecht, and you also know, of course, the important contributions that he had to make towards political and social discourse during a particularly difficult time of German history in the 20th century. Theatre is about getting across a message in a way that's more visceral than simply using words. And we can see this, for example, in Christianity. If you've been to a church, you may have seen a statue of Jesus perhaps above the altar, and you might have seen that sometimes you might see that there's a cut in Jesus's side. Why is that there? Well, one of the central tenets of Christianity is that Jesus died and came back to life 3 days later. But how do you get that message across to your medieval populace when nobody speaks Latin, which is the language that the priests would have used, and nobody can read? Well, this symbol of this cut in Jesus' side represents the fact that Jesus actually died. The Roman soldier that was supervising the crucifixion used this method to check whether the people that were being crucified were actually dead. And so this symbol lives on today in what we see in Christian symbolism. We see a lot of theatre as well going on in the world of politics. We've just seen the departure of former President Donald Trump, but from his campaign all the way through his governance until the very end was full of theatre. His 3-word slogans during his campaigns, lock her up, drain the swamp, build the wall, all intended there to represent ideas rather than actual day-to-day governance and policy. His grander gestures when in power, all very theatrical in their nature. The building of the wall, the trade war with China, the pulling out of the Paris Agreement, all there to sort of represent the kind of thing that he ought to do, rather than necessarily things which are right for America or the world. And of course, all the way through to the way out, the storming of the Capitol. The storming of the Capitol, as much a symbolic act as it was a physical violation of that space and of those people's safety. We see theatre in the handover of power. 3 former presidents turning up to supervise or to see that baton, that metaphorical baton of power, is duly handed on to the next person in charge. And of course, and actually, there's a literal baton as well. The so-called football, the nuclear football that contains the codes that are required in case the president should need to launch any nuclear weapons. There are 2. Well, in a normal handover, the outgoing president and the incoming president's Secret Service agents are stood at the back of the ceremony, and as soon as the new president is sworn in, that briefcase, the football, is handed from one Secret Service agent to the other, so the president always has those codes just in case he or she should need to use them. There's theatre, of course, in the way Biden is running his presidency already. We can see from the very early things he's done, the lighting of 400 lanterns alongside the pool of reflection, intended to symbolise and commemorate and memorialise the 400,000 lives that have been lost to COVID in that country. British politics has its theatre as well, and British politics is peculiar in that the theatricality is baked into the way the building is designed. In the House of Commons, the 2 sides line up against each other, and the Prime Minister or the leader of the opposition approach the lectern to perform to both their own side and the other side, and to us, the public, to perform their politics. European politics is not as theatrical. and the debating chambers are often semicircular, rather than two rows faced off against each other, which is supposed to allow for a finer gradation of views from left to right. And I'd like to wonder if about the politics that you see through the modern theatre that is television. What do you rather see? Would you rather see a politics that is fun to watch and entertaining, or would you rather a politics which is maybe a little drier, but perhaps cares a little bit more about the truth of the finer details? I'll leave that one with you for you to ponder. Have an amazing weekend, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.